A CEO followed his employee home after. She asked for leftover food. What he saw that night changed everything. Michael Reynolds had reviewed thousands of staff requests during his career. Schedule swaps, payroll clarifications, vacation forms. But that night, in the stillness of his office long after the board had cleared out, one message stopped him cold. It wasn't a complaint, nor a demand, just a single line. Would it be possible to take home leftover meals after my shift? The request carried the name Sophia Carter, a line cook who had been with the company a little over a year. She never missed time, never made waves, always the last to leave. Most people would casually ask a manager for extra food, maybe grab something quietly. Why had she filed a formal request? Michael wasn't usually sentimental. He was a CEO. His job was strategy and profit, not personal lives. Still, this unsettled him. He pulled up her file, 24 years old, no spouse, no emergency contacts. Odd. Maybe she was frugal, maybe just careful with money. But the wording suggested something more. She needed that food. For the first time in years, curiosity tugged at him. He checked the clock. 10:45 p.m. Her shift ended at 11. Without overthinking, he shut down his laptop, grabbed his coat, and slipped out the back exit. He had no idea why, only that tonight he had to see for himself. Outside, the air was cool, the lot mostly empty. Through the back door of the kitchen, he spotted Sophia wiping down counters, her brown hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, strands clinging to her forehead after hours over the grill. She moved with practiced efficiency. A manager handed her a small paper bag, which she accepted quietly, tucking it under her arm. That had to be the leftovers. She removed her apron, folded it neatly, slung a faded backpack over one shoulder, and walked out toward the bus stop. Michael lingered, feeling a strange dissonance. He lived in a world of private drivers, lounges, and first-class cabins. Yet here was one of his best workers, finishing a double shift, only to wait on public transit. The thought alone nudged him forward. He slid into his black sedan, but didn't start the engine, watching instead as Sophia stood beneath a flickering streetlight, arms wrapped around herself, shifting impatiently as the bus ran late. When headlights finally cut through the dark, she boarded quickly, barely looking up. Michael followed, keeping distance, unsure why he was even doing it, just knowing something inside told him he should. The ride dragged on, far longer than he imagined. Stop after stop passed, yet she remained seated. The scenery grew unfamiliar, the lights fewer, shops replaced by boarded windows and forgotten storefronts, the skyline swallowed by shadows, fences, and crumbling houses. He checked the dashboard clock, 12:20 a.m. When at last Sophia pulled the cord and rose to leave, the bus hissing to a stop in a neighborhood Michael had never driven through before. Michael kept his distance, parking at the far end of the street. She walked briskly, head down, never glancing over her shoulder, moving like someone used to the dark. The neighborhood wasn't the worst, but it wasn't the sort of place you wanted to wander alone at midnight either. She slipped around a corner, vanishing behind a row of dented cars, and Michael realized he'd been holding his breath as he gripped the wheel tighter. He eased the sedan forward, careful not to draw attention until his headlights caught it. Not an apartment, not even a small house, a weathered trailer. Sophia stepped onto the narrow porch, balancing the paper sack in one hand as she unlocked the door. A dim bulb flickered on inside, its glow leaking through thin curtains. Michael froze. This wasn't what he had pictured at all. He pulled over quietly, close enough to see but not be noticed. His pulse was steady, but his fingers clenched the wheel harder than usual. She'd been on his payroll for over a year, working full-time, grinding through back-to-back shifts. That income should have secured at least a modest place to live. Yet here she was, walking into a trailer that looked one storm away from collapse. He leaned forward, watching as the light revealed a cramped space, stained walls, threadbare carpet, clutter piled in corners, nothing resembling comfort. Then movement. 3 small figures burst from the shadows. Children. They threw themselves at Sophia, wrapping around her waist. For a moment, her tired face broke into a smile. Michael's throat tightened. They weren't her kids. They were too young. Siblings, maybe. Then an older woman shuffled into view, frail, her hair streaked with grey. A grandmother. Sophia helped her into a chair before carefully unpacking the food, onto 4 plates, not 5. The kids tore in hungrily. The grandmother slower, her hands trembling around the fork. Sophia sat with them, but Michael noticed quickly. She wasn't eating. She cut the food into tiny pieces, pushed it around her plate, nodding at the kids' chatter, smiling at the grandmother, but never once took a bite. She was giving hers up without saying a word. Michael's chest ached. He thought about his own dinner just hours earlier, a thick steak at a luxury restaurant, the check costing more than she probably earned in 3 days. He hadn't even finished it. And here she was, in a broken-down trailer after 16 hours on her feet, sacrificing her own meal so her family could eat. His grip tightened on the wheel until his knuckles went white. He hadn't come expecting this. He wasn't sure what he expected. Confirmation that she wanted leftovers, maybe curiosity, but this was something else entirely. This was survival, sacrifice, and a reminder of a system he was part of. And what Michael didn't realize yet was that Sophia's story ran even deeper than what he was seeing through that cracked window. The quiet hum of the street around him felt distant, almost muted against the weight of what he was witnessing. Sophia's smile lingered as the children chatted between bites, her exhaustion hidden behind soft eyes filled with affection. She looked content for their sake, but Michael caught the subtle truth in the way she rubbed her temples when no one was watching, in the way her shoulders drooped the moment she thought they weren't looking. Then the eldest boy, no older than 10, asked the question that made Michael's chest knot. "Did you eat at work today?" Michael leaned forward, watching her carefully. For the briefest second, her expression faltered, a crack in the mask, before she forced a smile and lied. "I had something earlier." The boy stuttered her doubtful but didn't push. He only nodded and returned to his plate. Michael felt sick. She wasn't just skipping dinner tonight, this was routine. She'd likely been doing this for weeks, maybe longer, sacrificing her own meals to keep her family fed while still working tirelessly, arriving on time, staying late, and never complaining. He sat back in his seat, releasing a sharp exhale. This wasn't simply unfair, it was disgraceful. And worse, he had been blind to it. Inside, Sophia cleared the plates, her siblings yawning as they shuffled off to the back corner that passed for a bedroom, while the frail grandmother moved slowly toward a worn recliner that clearly served as her bed. Michael squinted, realization hitting. The trailer was far too small for 4 people. Then he saw it, a thin mattress on the floor by the kitchen, a single blanket folded neatly on top. That was Sophia's bed. After endless hours standing in heat and grease, serving meals to strangers, she ended her nights on a mattress barely fit for a child. Michael's stomach turned. He thought about board meetings, where executives bragged about employee well-being, about bonuses and catered dinners, about company retreats with untouched leftovers that were tossed away without thought. Meanwhile, one of his most reliable workers was starving in silence, sleeping on the floor, holding up her family with nothing but grit and sacrifice. He closed his eyes, drawing in a long breath, fury curling inside him. Sympathy wasn't enough, not anymore. Something had to change, and it had to start with him. Michael couldn't bring himself to drive home. He sat there for hours, staring at the darkened trailer long after its lights blinked out, his mind racing. How many Sophias did he have on his payroll? How many employees forced to smile through hunger while executives feasted? He thought of the bloated budgets, the unnecessary perks, the thousands wasted on PR campaigns. And for the first time, he realized just how broken the balance truly was. And then he thought about Sophia's mattress on the floor. His grip on the steering wheel tightened until his knuckles whitened. This wasn't her failure. It was the company's failure. And as the man at the top, it was his. For years he'd told himself his employees were cared for, pointing to reports, payroll charts, and policies he'd signed without question, but he had never really seen. Tonight he had seen, and there was no going back. Michael pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts. Without hesitation, he pressed call. The line rang twice before a groggy voice came through. "Sir, it's after midnight. Is everything all right?" It was his head of operations, the one tasked with employee welfare. Michael said firmly, everything is not all right. Silence lingered on the other end, but firmly, everything is not all right. Silence lingered on the other end. What do you mean? Michael's eyes flicked once more toward the trailer before he turned the key in the ignition. Tomorrow morning, we fix this, all of it, first thing. He ended the call before a reply came. It wasn't up for debate, it was decided. The next morning, Michael walked into his office with only one mission: change. By midday, policies were rewritten, leftover meals were no longer optional. They would be packaged nightly and made available to staff. Pay scales were reviewed and raised, so no full-time employee would ever again have to choose between shelter and food. A new emergency relief program was launched, offering direct aid for workers in crisis. And Sophia, she came in as if it were just another shift, until her manager pulled her aside and handed her an envelope. Inside was a raise large enough to move her family into stable housing, to let her eat without guilt, to give her the security she'd been silently sacrificing for. For the first time in a long while, she didn't have to fake being okay. Michael had walked into work that morning, a CEO, he left a leader, and the question remained, how many others around us are struggling in silence? How often do we choose not to see? If you hold the power to make a difference, no matter how small, don't wait. Act today.